Okay, let's proceed with the second video in this series of season two, pipe dreams. Um, we're going to look at the findIndex function. And of course, this is similar to the native array method called findIndex. And we can look at that here in the docs. And most of you, if you're watching this, are probably already familiar with this. And just as a reminder, what we're doing is we're taking the data, the object that we're applying the findIndex function to, and moving it to the end where data comes last, which is the the thing that helps us compose and pipe these functions together. So it's really nice. Um, JavaScript actually works pretty well as a functional language, but the syntax fights against it a little bit. So that's one reason that we're using Ramda. Um, so anyway, the built-in function takes a callback function, a predicate function, uh, right? Yeah, because the index, yeah, so the index is going to, when we run this, find index on a list of data and probably a string as well. Um, we're going to either return the index of where the item is located in the list, or if it's not there, we're going to return -1, not undefined. So you can read about this if you want to refamiliarize yourself with the built-in array method. But let's start here with the type definition here. So just like find, we're taking a function, which is a predicate, so type of anything, and returning a Boolean, true or false. And just like this, we're taking the list of A's, so whatever type is you're checking an A, that's what it expects to check in the list that you provide is the second argument. Or if it's curried, it's not the second argument. I think you know what I mean, but I'll demonstrate in a minute. And find returns either the A that it finds or undefined. But find index is always going to return a number. It's going to return an integer, either -1 if it's not found, or the number if it finds it, the location, the index. So the big difference is that you're not going to get undefined. You're going to get -1, which is an interesting decision. If I think about it for a second, why not just pass undefined? Because that's actually what it is. -1 on a list doesn't really make any sense. Um, but maybe they wanted to keep it in line with how the built-in array method works. Yeah, I'm sure somebody thought this through. And there's probably a good reason. So if you know what that is, it would be nice if you would let me know in a comment. Um, and then we'll check out here. So yeah, predicate function used to determine if the element is the desired one. So the one that we're looking for. And then the list, the array to consider. And they, again, I would assume if find works on strings, then find index would work on strings as well. So we'll check that. And then let's read the definition here. We've got returns the index of the first element of the list, which matches the predicate. So whichever one the predicate returns true for first, it'll give you essentially the location in the list numbered 0 through however many elements there are. Acts as a transducer. That's great. Don't know what it means. And then we see also transduce, but let's look at indexOf as well in this video because they're very similar. I think find index is a newer method and indexOf was around for a while. Um, but let's go in here, get rid of everything except for the log at the top, the log alias and the import. And we'll leave the list of X's so we have something to work with. And I'll go in here and clear out my terminal. So find index. What do we want to do to test it? Well, let's first just do something simple. Let's see if we want to find um, the location of the number five. So that would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So four is the answer we're looking for. So we could do r.findIndex. First, we want the predicate function. So I'll just do this in line. And so we want to know if the number that we pass in equals five. We'll do triple equals, so the number five. And then, of course, we want to pass it the data. So I kind of have gotten used to calling functions with just one argument. And I know this freaks people out a lot. I spent a little bit of time learning Haskell, and I appreciate the lack of syntax in Haskell. You know, you're essentially in Haskell calling things like this, just without the parentheses. So I don't mind doing it like this. And first, let's see if I did it correctly. So let's run that file. Yeah, and we get index 4, so it found it. But of course, I'm assuming that we can pass both arguments at one time. See if that works. And it does. So what else could we do with this? Um, Thinking of examples is hard. It's almost as hard as thinking of naming or names for things. So yeah, we've got this. We could make this much more concise by tracking the function. Uh, what was the function do? Is so it is uh, five is five. Yeah. So and of course we could partially apply this. Oops. We could do a function called index, or let's call it find index of five, and apply it. Go ahead and apply the predicate function to it. There's five, and then we could just call the function find index of five and apply that to our x's. All right, that should give us the same thing. Oh, it doesn't. What I do? Okay, our index of is five, so that's the predicate. Am I doing something silly here? Our index is five. I mean, my logic here, it's a point free function here. So my logic is that is five should receive the argument and then apply is five to that argument. So I mean, doing this, that should make a difference. Yeah, we still get -1. So and is five here. It takes an x and returns if x is equal to five. That is interesting. I wonder why that doesn't work. So I guess we'll start debugging. If I do find index of five dot length to see how many arguments it's taking, it takes one argument, which should be the data. That's what I did, right? Pass x's to it. I question how to debug this any further, and I'm sure that at least some of you watching this are screaming at me right now because I've done something dumb. Is it because I need to be mapping through it? I mean, what's X? Uh, Can I console? Can I log X here? I mean, that's not really going to work, I don't think. With this log, yeah, I get nothing there. That won't work. But if I go back to r.findIndex and I pass in is 5 here, I run that. That's what we had before. That worked. Yeah, it gave me 4. So what am I doing different? Find index of 5 should partially apply. The function is 5. And if I just log the function, I get a function 2. And if I pass the predicate to it, I get a function that takes the last argument. And I see that we can do x's here. We tried that. That works. And I can do it here. And that still works. But if I take this much, and I pass, I just call the find index of 5, which remembers this first argument because of closures, save it, run it, and now it's working. So obviously, at some point, I did something strange. It could have been not saving it. That's always something. Hide my sidebar here just to give us more room. But at least I went through the troubleshooting process because I was quite sure that should work. Wow, that's crazy. Anyway, while we're here, let's check it out on a word. We'll call this hello. And let's see, find the index. Let's find the index of L since there's 2 of them. So the first one I would imagine would be index 2, 0, 1, and 2. So let's do this like I did the last one, and let's partially apply the function. So we find index of L, even though it's capital, you should know what I mean. So we find index and we do, I think I know what I did wrong last time, but anyway, yeah, let's pass the function. So we're going to take x and it's x equal L lowercase, save that, and on the index of L and pass it the word save, and we get 2, and that's correct. So it finds the first one. That's one thing to make sure. I guess you could always reverse it if you're looking for the find. Oh, there's a find last, so that we'll get to that very soon. But before we finish this one, um, let's go ahead and check out indexOf because I like the first season of this video series by Chris. It's sometimes good to jump around, uh, to see related functions. So this one, let's look at the type signature. It just takes an A. It doesn't take a function, and then it takes a list and returns a number. I go back, we take a predicate function, then a list, and then it returns a number. So that's probably the main difference. Target the item defined, X is the array to search in, and it returns a number. And again, it returns -1 if the target is not found. Um, so you can see their example here, index of 3 in this list, it gives you 2, 0, 1, 2, and 10 is not in this list, so you get -1. So that's really the difference, is if you need a function to calculate something. So I guess we could do the last example, um, and just say find index of L. And um, it's interesting because what was the last one? Find in it. Okay, so we'll just call this index of L, and then we're going to do index of, just making sure I get it right because that last troubleshooting session kind of threw me off. Yeah, and then we can just do the index of L. Maybe I got that right. Yeah, and we get 2. So if I did, what happens if I do a space? Is that considered undefined or something? Yeah, I get 3. Yeah, so I guess you could say, like, if you wanted to find the location of a space, you could just say find, do this, basically, but with a different name, obviously, or down here, um, a blank space. Yeah, that's interesting. So again, I find it really useful that a lot of these array methods work on strings. Um, and I don't know if that's the case with the built-in array methods. I'm really would guess that it would not be the case. But I'm also not going to bother looking right now. So if anybody knows, let me know. Or if anybody wants to check, check and then let me know. Um, but otherwise, we'll wrap up and jump into. Let's see. That was index of. Go back to find index. Yeah, and then we'll jump into find last next.